Why, hello, and welcome to our second episode of the Day One Game Pass show. It's a 3-segment show this week. I'm joined by John, Sik and Clark, to talk about Starfield. Then, Aarsal, aka Soulblazers, joins me to talk about the Dead Space remake. And finally, we're going to finish up with Lonely Mountain Downhills, again, with John, Sik and Clark. So let's get right into it. And welcome to our first segment, which we definitely didn't film after our third segment. I'm here joined for the first time by John, Sik and Clark, our editor-in-chief. How are you doing? I haven't asked you that yet today.
I don't think you have, and I'm really glad you did, because I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to be here. This is episode 2 of Day One, our exclusive to Patreons, at least for like early access.
Yeah, it'll be a few days normally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we love our patrons, because they're legends.
And I very smartly started it up once Game Pass releases were kind of done for the year, and there wasn't much left. So we'll have one episode in December. It'll be a big one. I'll try and get at least 4 team members on to talk about things I really like. So we are here today because I really wanted to talk about Starfield, but I'm the host and not the guest. So I needed a guest who has played a whole bunch of it. You might not have beaten it, but you have played a lot with me, including during the review period. John,
I have. I've booked some holiday actually for Christmas, like the period between just before Christmas all the way through to January. And there's definitely going to be some leave me alone, I'm finishing Starfield days, because I've got a good chunk of the way through. I think I've only got like maybe a quarter of the mainline story left to do, but I want to do I've got the Vanguard faction still to do, so I've got to get that done.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good 2. Yeah, actually, there are 2 main quests in that faction, so that are both
the Crimson Fleet and the Vanguards.
Yeah,
or maybe I did the Vanguard since the Crimson Fleet I'm talking about, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, because you can approach the Crimson Fleet from 2 ways. You can just join the Crimson Fleet, or you can approach it from the Vanguard as a double agent.
Yeah, I'm doing that one. I'm a double agent style because it's more interesting. But
I'm not good
at
being
like a triple agent.
Yes, you can always. So I know that this game has been described by people I respect in the industry as a mile wide but an inch deep. But I vehemently disagree with that, because the choices you make really do matter, especially with the fact that you can do New Game Plus in this, which is new for Bethesda games. But before we get too far ahead of things, Starfield is the biggest Xbox release this year. It is one of the best-selling games. I think it's number 9 right now on the latest Circana chart for North America, at least. Mm-hmm. We'll never know global numbers and everything then, except for Xbox themselves saying it outperformed what we were hoping. So I know there's been
despite being on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's tough. There's just been so much weird negative spin on it, where it's people outside of the ecosystem and who don't use the platform that much, I think, looked at it way more as something way more important than the actual people who do use Xbox a lot, who do know what the goals of Microsoft in general are with this division, where Starfield was the big release of the year. But that's not the same as like Spider-Man 2, where it was the big release of the year for a company very dependent on trying to push everything as hard as they can right now. But I digress.
Look, I mean, you can't, unfortunately, rightly or wrongly, you can't discuss Starfield without discussing the silliness around it. Like, random Twitter account today, on a random tweet that with nothing to do with this, said at XboxEra said it was game of the generation. Well, what have they got to say? And I was like, I don't think we did say that. I even went as far as to go into your review and hit Control F and search for generation, and it was mentioned twice. And it was like, it's for the new generation of consoles and older generation of consoles. Those are the only 2 times you said the word generation in the entire review. So, and this is what's weird. The game of the generation talk was, some of it was jokingly spoken about on Twitter, but I feel like the people that don't like Starfield also frame Starfield again as the next, it has to succeed or Xbox has failed game. whereas it's just a pretty damn good video game, actually.
Yeah, like it is a Bethesda game, and Bethesda games have that flavor, and they've got that focus on simulation of systems. It is a bigger scope, it is a bigger budget, but even then, like, it's still, as an actual dev team, they're like a quarter, or they're like a half of even like a Bungie. Like they're big, they make big things, but it's not some crazy $200 million, moonshot project that has to pay back right away. Like, it is this, it's essentially a platform a lot of times with them, which is why they embrace mods so much, which we'll probably get in like Q1 of next year when the kit comes for doing mods on console and PC. And it takes what I think is their best canvas, because I know people are like, oh, the exploration's actually bad. It's like, well, if you just want to constantly use fast travel, you can. It's there for that, and thankfully it's pretty quick. There's not, exploring in No Man's Sky is pretty boring. Like, it actually, because there's just not that much out there, and once you've seen the procedural parts, you know what it is, and but it's fun to see the animation of flying away from a planet or into a planet, which I get, and that'll be a thing with the Star Wars Outlaws game, which is using the Beyond Good and Evil 2 tech, which, funnily enough, it's using it before that game's probably still not even a real thing, where you get the loading screen is more interactive, like in Jedi Survivor, which you've potentially been playing.
I've started it,
Yeah, there are points where you're flying your ship, and it's this whole long hidden loading screen, essentially, where they keep you in the ship, and there's talking, there's all that. For Starfield, it was very much, we're just going to cut to black, and in anywhere between 3 and 10 seconds, you're on the next thing. People have modded those loading screens out on PC, and it is pretty much instant, but you just see everything popping in.
The thing with it is, and I've noticed that that's a criticism from some, but I'm like, speaking to people that, in IRL, that aren't in the industry, but actual just people that love Bethesda games.
Mm-hmm.
One of my mates was like, why on earth would I want to watch an animation every time, and have to go and sit through that and have it play out in real time? Of course I'm going to fast travel there. It's because I'm not, that's not why I'm playing. I'm playing for a multitude of other reasons. And I think that there was this weird sudden demand for immersion in Starfield. And I think if you play it that way, it can be perfectly immersive. During the espionage quests, I kind of really got into it, and I was like loving not being detected and getting around while I was doing like a bunch of corporate espionage. But then as I was doing side quests where it was just like silly stuff, like go from here, go back here, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna go walk to my ship, get in my ship, launch up from my ship, go through the out. Like, imagine that. Imagine how boring that would get. It's like when 2 Human had an animation every time you died. It was like 35 seconds long, and you had to sit through it. There was no skip.
You know what it is. It's Callisto Protocol. So when you play Dead Space and you use a heal, you just start seeing your health go up. In Callisto Protocol, when you need to heal, he kneels down, slowly, lovingly, beautifully animated, thanks to the Sony team that helped them, pulls out the needle, puts it in his neck, and starts healing. And it's like 4 or 5 seconds every time to do a heal. So it makes it more a strategic thing you have to do, but it's also infuriating to me. I really appreciated their approach to, we want to be realistic, but what is fun? So we are always going to err on the side of being fun. And they are going to have like the, if you're a huge Expanse fan, they have all the systems in there for having to really worry about radiation and conditions and all that type of stuff. Like, they're going to have, I think they've talked about having that mode in there eventually where you really have to pay attention to,
like an ultimate hardcore type mode. Yeah.
A hardcore mode where you've got to worry about planet radiation in the suit you're wearing, and you've got to worry about conditions you can get in different things and stuff like that. They're going to have that. This game is their best canvas for mod support, which is an enormous part of these. And I do think with it having that focus on being the savior, a lot of people are just used to action RPGs and far less actual RPGs that look and play like this. Because when you go into a
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3, you expect an RPG. It's a 3/4 perspective. You're clicking on a mouse to tell people to move, or it's like this it feels like an RPG. Whereas Starfield actually does feel like a competent, enjoyable first-person shooter.
It's probably why I liked it so much comparatively to how I normally bounce off other RPGs. You know, like similarly for Mass Effect, like that got me, and arguably Mass Effect went completely into the shooter genre.
It
rather
went
than the
into
RPG genre
an
after
action game.
episode 1.
It was an action game, gameplay-wise first, with deep RPG stories and choices and stuff.
Yeah.
But this one also, like, I know you were struggling for a little bit because you have to get in that mindset of this is an actual role-playing game. I'm playing.
I've got to level this up.
Yeah.
I've got to earn this skill.
And you've got to figure out who your character is and how you want to play them. Like, it has to be an actual role. They are a blank slate for you to mold in a way that isn't the standard for like big AAA games most of the time. Elden Ring was an exception again, where you don't really make choices, but you get to choose so much of exactly how you play and all that. But this one for me, you go.
I think Starfield. Yeah, I think Starfield is gonna be around for a long while. And you know, to your point about mod support coming in Q1, we've still got the Shattered Space expansion, so they're gonna have another beat on that.
Yeah, they just said they still have 250 devs are actively working on the game right now.
Yeah,
so
I think the only real negative I have towards the game as a game is because of the number of systems in play, there are still some bugs. It is definitely far less buggy than other Bethesda games, but like there is still one quest I can't finish yet. I haven't logged back in since a couple of patches ago, so I do need to see if the guy
today.
It actually exactly this
DLSS for you.
Yeah, I'm very looking forward to seeing how.
And supposedly, even without the DLSS, even like on AMD or without running DLSS, it is running way better because it's taking more advantage of higher end cards and higher end CPUs. So,
could be good. Yeah. I mean, I was already running Ultra on everything, and it was
me too.
Great.
I was Ultra 4K and I would get 50 in some cities at times, but it was normally over 100. But
yeah. Do you think they're going to bring 60 FPS to console eventually in the new year?
The minute mods hit, it'll be unlocked, and we'll see if it can get anywhere close. Because I think in cities, it will struggle to be anywhere near that. But if you're on VRR with a VRR display that can go to 40, you'd be okay. So I wouldn't mind if they had a 40 hertz unlocked mode. That is mainly what I used when I played Hogwarts Legacy. Where it will lock to 40 and allow to go above, but never go below. And it felt perfect on a TV set at 120 hertz because it's divisible by that. So
it's one of those games that I think for a lot of people, like people in my life have no-lifed it to the extent of like they have done everything like within 3 or 4 weeks.
If they were in the industry, they then say that I didn't really like it though. Because I literally have seen people I know and I like have been like, oh yeah, I got about 100 hours in, but it's like a 6 or a 7. I'm like, that's not that's not what you put 100 hours into.
If you really hated it that much, like you wouldn't keep playing it. You'd just be like, whatever.
And I don't want to keep harping on it because it's just talking about the game, but the game has been so discussion around the game has just been so set by, and it's weird. It's the people who are like, if you don't like it, that's fine. I like it. Or if I don't like it, that's fine. You like it. A lot of those people have been very vocal to make sure that they don't like it and that they don't believe that you like it. And I'm like, no, it's just, I really like, I got like, I don't know, count up all the Bethesda games I've played. I probably got like 5,000 hours in them, like conservatively. Like I really like Bethesda's games.
And that's the weird thing is this weird narrative of this isn't what I was expecting. Really? Like, I think I was expecting transparent.
Like a big improvement on their Fallout 4 shooting mechanics in space, but it's going to be cell-based. That is the system. That is how it works. And it's like, I've seen people saying, well, maybe they should just go to Unreal Engine 5. And I'm like, no, their games would not work in Unreal Engine 5. They simply don't. They have this new engine for a reason. It's the only way these things, like Unreal Engine only just got the whole cell loading thing that they work off of. Like when you're this simulation heavy, you can't do it the same way. Um, it's
It's a good
probably my
game.
favorite game of the year. It's probably like the one and I played some incredible games a lot this year. I put 115 hours into Diablo 4 in review. Absolutely adored it. Loved that game. Bad Season 1 left a rotten taste in people's mouth, I think. Season 2 is actually fantastic. But it was too little too late for awards season, I'm guessing. But like...
Yeah, I know that's the other source of discussion that everyone's been going on about. Like,
oh yeah, I don't think you and I don't give a shit about awards and the nominations because we know how it works, especially because it's not an awards show; it's a marketing event with awards in it. Because if it was an award show, it would be by the industry itself, because that's what award shows normally are. Like that's what the DICE awards are. That's an award show. The BAFTAs.
That's a proper one.
Yeah, those are about the award. They're not about being in December to maximize marketing budgets because they want people to buy the games that are shown off in the show. Like that's why it happens now. That's why there's a cutoff that's at like the worst time of the year, where some companies have very smartly used that cutoff to get your game out about a week before the cutoff because the negative talk about your game won't have started up yet like it normally does. Because there are a lot of games out there, I think you and I would agree, depending on the platform or the developer, where sometimes they're extremely positive at embargo time. And then when people play them, the flaws start getting talked about by everyone else.
Yeah, by the actual people that buy games as opposed to just giving them.
And not to say they're bad. It's just that they're not always... It's the one... And again, it's kind of annoying because Nick is right. Xbox games get properly critiqued. The Xbox tax that's everywhere now and is being used horribly wrong. It's only a tax in the sense that I truly believe Xbox is properly critiqued or harshly critiqued. Sometimes it's way over the top, depending on what type of shithead personality they are. But some of the other ones don't
I actually came up with a succinct way, or at least I felt it was succinct, because we did discussion on the XboxEra podcast the other night, and this is how I put it, and this is for day one members, in case you didn't see me chatting in the Discord, this is how I put it. If 80%, because that's roughly the figure, of multi-platform covering outlets typically primarily play on PlayStation, and that's reflected in how games are reviewed, right? You go look at Metacritic for any genuinely large-ish multi-platform release.
Like Jedi Survivor.
Are going to be reviewed on PlayStation because, hey, the human beings that all have biases and wants and desires and preferences ask for PlayStation code. And if of the 120 outlets, which funnily enough are comprised of human beings, nominate what they play, guess what that's going to reflect in? You're not going to choose an Xbox game most of the time. Like you can from an industry perspective go, hey, I hear Hi-Fi Rush is pretty good, right? But generally speaking, if 80% of your time is being spent on that platform, guess what? It's not going to get a really fair shake at things.
Yeah,
and it's not to say that Starfield deserves Game of the Year this year. Yeah. It's not my Game of the Year this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that goes some way to explain, and I hate the refusal from some people to just take that as fact. Like that isn't an opinion. That is how games are reviewed.
I pulled the Metacritic page up. There's 121 on PlayStation 5 for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. There's 26 on PC and 17 on Xbox. Like it's and it's fine. Like you want to play it where you're used to playing things, and you want to play it where I've got a PlayStation 5. I might not have an Xbox, or it's just where I'm used to playing stuff. I like this DualSense a lot. That's perfectly fine, but it is not dictated by the publisher. You can ask for any version. Some versions are going to be available earlier. Normally PC is available earlier on most things. Yep. But like with Frontiers of Pandora coming out in a couple of weeks, I've said, please Xbox, PC if it's way earlier. Because otherwise we don't get Xbox until launch, and then you don't get a review. That is the occasional thing that happens.
The juggling act that we have to deal with. But yeah, that's how I would put it, right? Like it's not I'm going to deliberately score this game badly. There's not a conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's just how human beings are.
Yeah. You're used to what you're used to.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. It's a shame. Like the whole thing needs a revamp. But look, Game Pass subscribers, if you are loving RPGs, or if you have been on the fence and you haven't picked up Starfield yet, and you really want to dive back into that world, I think now that it's had the number of additional patches, like I think it's still performed fantastically from day one, but it's had some further tweaks. There's definitely more enhancements available on PC. There's far fewer bugs. It's the perfect time to maybe pick it back up. You know, the Christmas holidays are coming up. For you guys this week, I think, is Thanksgiving.
Yep, this Thursday.
Spend some time ignoring your family and exploring the galaxy.
It runs really well on the Legion Go. Now, not for long.
Every time you talk about the Legion Go, and I want one.
Well, yeah, because they sent one in for coverage, so I got to give it proper coverage. You know, you reach out to the UK and see if they have any. Because honestly, that it would have had to been them sending it to me, and then I ship it to you, and that would have cost a lot of money. Because PR is very territorial. But yeah, so if you've got a handheld like the Roger Ally or the Legion Go, runs great. I don't think this runs on a Steam Deck, or at least not well. They are a little underpowered comparatively, but with a better battery life. But yeah, it's their first time that a game plays truly great on a controller too. So if you're worried about that, because a lot of times like Fallout 4 was okay, Skyrim, shooting a bow and arrow could be infuriating on a controller. But yeah, just overall the story, the way New Game Plus works, which is super addictive, and I would be way further into if I hadn't reviewed 15 games since this came out.
You have reviewed a lot of games.
Yeah, it's just been it's September and October, and even now November have been crazy. I had 4 last week. I wasn't expecting to do that. That wasn't supposed to happen. But anyways, yeah, there are quest fixes in today's patch, by the way. It might fix the quest you've been having bugged out.
Oh, I'm going to read those patch notes. I'm definitely going to go check them out.
I've been getting, so I'm showing the shipbuilding in the review right now, and I've been getting into that quite a bit, and there's some crazy things you can build. But again, it is an RPG. You need to build your character up to be able to do it. But yeah, I could go on. It's a well-written RPG with really good plot lines. I think it's their best main quest plot line that they've done, because a lot of times the best parts of Fallout and Elder Scrolls have been the side stuff. And there's still some incredible side stuff here, but I think the main quest holds up really well in comparison to them.
Yeah.
It is a full, deep, immersive Bethesda RPG where your choices matter. It just plays and looks way better than they ever have before. Mods are coming soon. It's always on Game Pass. Yeah, I cannot recommend it enough. And I could talk about this one a long time, and it's nice to not have Nick here because his eyes glaze over every time we bring it up.
Yeah, well, you know, like we had to have a special show. In fact, I would recommend, you know, if you're a listener to the XboxEra podcast, we did do a special Starfield show, I think, with you and I. Yep. Where I think we could have spent a good hour going into a lot of the nitty gritty. So I definitely recommend go and check it up. But yeah, no, it's well worth playing, and I think it is far more deserving of acclaim than it is of criticism.
There's definitely valid criticism. Game. It's
the loading times is the worst thing, and it's not even the loading times. I should rephrase that. It's the frequency of loading into areas. That's the one thing.
That was the thing honestly, that knocked it down for me.
I think if they had that seamlessness to it, I think that all of the other stuff would have evaporated in terms of negativity.
If there had been a way to quickly go to black and come out and not get a screen and not have it be that long, if they had found a way, because if you can mod it out on PC and it's super quick, it just does pop in. So if there's ever, they can ever get by that. If they, with the re-release on the next gen, when they remaster it, and they've got even faster. 2. Yeah. Now, we got the Elder Scrolls 6 next. Then after that, who knows? Because everyone wants Fallout. So they're not a 2-team studio. People have asked. He doesn't want to.
But hey, they are owned by Microsoft now, so maybe even bigger budgets and bigger.
And what
teams.
If Fallout goes to Obsidian? Does a Fallout? Who knows? It could always happen. Yeah. We're eating good.
We'll see.
It's been an incredible 2023. Fallout, Starfield. Right at the very tippity top of my game of the years so far before we have a ton of content for that coming at the end of December,
Yeah.
week before Christmas. We're going to have tons of articles and videos. It's going to be good.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun, community driven conversation experience as we all say goodbye to this year and look forward to the carnage of the behemoth that is now Microsoft Gaming in 2024. But yeah, thanks for having me on to chat about Starfield, man.
Excuse me. Yeah, and thank you for joining me. The next segment is going to be myself talking to Aarsal. I'm not even going to say bye to John because John's going to be back right after that one.
I will be back.
Yeah, we're doing Starfield first, as you guys just watched. Then we've got Dead Space remake coming up next with Aarsal. After that, you're going to see John again for Lonely Mountains Downhill. But thank you, John.
Good game. Bye.
Hello again, everyone. I'm joined here today by Aarsal, a.k.a. Soulblazers, to talk about Dead Space, the 2023 remake. Aarsal, thank you for joining me.
Yo, thanks for having me.
So you hadn't, I reviewed it back at launch and fell in love. Well, actually I reviewed it after launch because we hadn't made EA's
at the time
full list then. But yeah, and I still ended up giving it a 10 because boy, did I freaking love that game. Like I loved Dead Space. I think
the original.
In my open critic thing, it's like, what are your favorite things? And it's like Halo, Battlefield, and Dead Space. Those games.
Damn. Okay.
Because I really love Dead Space. Yeah, Dead Space 1, Dead Space 2, and then Dead Space 3 in co-op aces, outside of the fact that it was the time when EA was at their worst with the microtransactions. Holy shit. Still did some crazy story stuff and was really good. But this is the remake of the original. It takes the skeleton, the bones of that original game.
Was 2007, right?
2008,
something like that.
Yeah,
2008. Okay, late 2000s.
Yeah, so it takes those, like the moving parts are all the same for the most part, but then they go back and you didn't play the original.
I didn't play.
Only played this.
I played the original when it came to EA Play in like 2015 or whatever it was for like 40 minutes, and then I noped out. Right, I'm like, nope, I can't do this. They followed me into the elevator, and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, the big thing. So the big thing with this one was it takes the skeleton of the 2008 release, and it just completely rebuilds it. So one of the big changes is the lack of loading screens. It is just one.
So the original game had loading screens.
Yeah, the original game, it wasn't one ship. It was a bunch of sections they would load in and out. But in Dead Space, the remake, they with modern tech, they're able to take all this and they're able to make an actual contiguous one large level, essentially.
As I was playing the game, in my head, I was thinking it's like this exploring the Ishimura was what so many horror sci-fi movies tried to do, right? But they were limited to 2 hours. But with like a 10-hour game and giving free reign, I literally explored the whole ship, and it felt alive, and it felt fluid, and it felt really smooth.
Another big change that adds to that is the procedural scare generation. So if you're wondering, like, all the noises you hear and all the weird things and when enemies pop out is all procedural. Yeah. And it gets worse and worse the stronger Isaac gets. And in New Game Plus, it is horrifyingly terrifying.
Oh man, I'm just about to start New Game Plus.
You're super powerful, so they throw way harder things at you early. But it's also like it's constantly unnerving audio wise. I know, like,
so speaking of, dude, the audio design in this game, next level. I'm playing with the headphones on, Atmos, and it's creepy, it's informative, like the 0G sections. Purely by just audio. I'm like, I know where this person is, move my camera, there it is, shoot. Like it's
So I know, like, we're at the Game Awards time, and a lot of people are looking at Resident Evil 4 remake.
Yeah, I was about to say, why wasn't it nominated for
this? Is a
audio design
for me. It might be less transformative because it was remaking something newer. But as a remake, it's just as good and from better source material. And please don't yell at me, Resident Evil fans. Resident Evil 4 remake is great. Resident Evil 4 originally doesn't really hold up. Not to have fun gameplay wise. Like, it's just a pain in the ass with those tank controls.
What else did they change? Like, did Isaac talk this much in the original game?
They added more talking from. So Isaac had the original voice actor the whole time. like that. He always was that
Okay.
voice actor, but
Okay.
he barely talked in the original release. He
Okay.
obviously talks a lot
Okay.
more, takes his helmet off more, which people get
Yes.
annoyed at.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
like, there's no reason for him
It's
not to. They
okay.
added,
And to be
um,
honest, as a player, him taking the helmet off is a moment where I can breathe too, where I'm like,
mhm,
okay, nothing's really
yeah,
gonna happen here that I can control, you know?
zero
So
G controls are different and a lot better.
okay.
Some
Okay. They
suits
feel pretty
and
good.
various things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's I think some of the I don't remember if the whole out out of the ship section with the
Yes.
turrets is
Some of the
new.
yeah.
It might
Yeah.
be. I
And
honestly
like
don't
the
remember.
asteroid from behind.
Yeah, there's definitely
Yeah.
some new sections, um, and some changed stuff. It's got a lot of the same plot beats, but there's also the whole thing. I don't remember. Like, there's all those markers you can find, and if you find all of them, you get the
So
certain
that's New
key.
Game Plus to get
Yeah,
an alternate ending, from what
yeah.
I know. I do
I
know that I don't want to spoil the story here, but I know near the ending, they changed a little bit of the plot point with something that was supposed to be like in his head that was a little different in the remake.
mhm.
Though speaking of, man, the story was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was trippy. It was though one thing I I want to say is everyone in the ship, the bad guys, the good guys, the people trying to manipulate things, they all owe Isaac so much. This man single-handedly saves the ship like 4 times from falling into the planet, from being destroyed by this, from being destroyed by that. Oh man. Cool character though. I
Yeah.
really want to play the sequel, but I think I'll wait a little bit.
I do think. Well, you've got a PC, so the Dead
Yes. Yeah.
Space 1 port is pretty bad. Dead Space 2 port
Okay.
on PC is still pretty good. You need to like go in and mod 1 to actually make it work because you can't get through one of the
Okay.
very first doors on PC
Oh my
with
god.
modern hardware. Dead Space 2 port
That's
is fine.
funny.
If you're gonna play it anytime soon, I'd say just go ahead and do it because they haven't
Yeah.
announced remaking 2. So even then, it's
Yeah.
gonna be
I'm
years.
hoping, right? Because this
Yeah.
I think it sold well and it did critically very well, of course,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so I'm
And
really
I still have a lot
hoping
to
they
do.
announce it. It would be a cool thing to
Yeah.
get soon, but even if they announce it, it will
Yeah.
be years probably. So you've got plenty
Yes.
of
Like
time.
I'll wait 2, 3 years. I can do that, right? I
Mhm.
waited what, 15 to play the first game?
Yeah.
Though speaking of, so I know about Dead Space. Every single person has told me for the past 10 years, one of the best games of all time. There's questions where, hey, if you could forget a game and play it again, what would it be? People say Dead Space, right?
Mhm.
So I knew that. I couldn't play because of the horror. This time I'm like, screw it, let's do it. Right? Horror movies I can watch. Horror games, there's a level of intimacy you don't get in
Mhm.
movies, right? You're the one
Yeah,
controlling it.
you get
That monster
scared
kills
in a
you.
game in a
Yeah,
movie, but like you are in control in a way in a game that is
exactly.
completely different.
You start panic shooting in this, and they'll kill you, right? And it's like, okay, damn, that was my fault. That being said, you play the game, and yeah, it's freaky, but when you watch a horror movie, for anyone listening who doesn't really play horror games, right? But you've seen a horror movie and you wonder, why don't they just shoot the bad guy, right? Shoot the monster. Yeah, this is that game. Yeah, they're scary. Yeah, they freak you out, but you rip everything to pieces, bit by bit, especially on normal difficulty, which what I played on. Like it's horror, it's super tense, but it's also stress relieving in a way
It's
because you
not
just like,
survival
oh,
horror. It's action horror
mm,
more than
yes, yes,
a lot of those other ones. It can be pretty
yep,
limiting on health packs and stuff like that at times.
yes,
But
yes,
you're never super weak, which I appreciate. I don't like being
yep.
really weak in games. I don't find
I mean,
that
the very
enjoyable.
first gun you pick up, you can beat the entire. In fact, there's an achievement to beat the entire game with just that gun, which I think I'll probably go for a New Game Plus.
Mm.
And it's one of the most satisfying
Yeah,
weapons I've ever used in a video
hmm,
game. Holy
especially
crap!
in sync with the kinesis and throwing, like just
Yes,
chopping a
yeah,
limb off,
dude.
pulling it in, and killing them with their own arm. Never,
And they
it
get
never
like
gets old.
stuck to the wall across the friggin' screen. Like the only part of the game that felt a little archaic to me was no dodge button at all. That's where
Yeah,
I'm like, it feels a little clunky here, where like I need to freeze, run around, turn back around, shoot a little bit here and there. And some of like the secondary or other weapons were kind of useless. You could tell some of them
they
were
have
clearly not
their
focused on as
so
much.
they definitely have their enemies, but you have to get to
Yeah.
their like upgrades because like the firewall at
Yeah.
first is okay on the flamethrower, but you upgrade the firewall and it just means no one
Mm.
can come at you from that angle for like 30 seconds, and it's incracredibly
Yeah, I
useful.
never used the upgrades for some reason, like the secondary
The
weapons. I
yeah, the
upgraded everything. I found the
alternates. Yeah.
schematics, but the
Hmm.
alternates I never. Because dude, ammo is scarce in this game. Like
Yeah.
you need to constantly either keep buying it or switching weapons around. No, I playing it now, I can easily see why people gave it the tens that it did, and it
Hmm.
deserves it. So
Yeah.
even after you beat the game, right? You can play the game again, New Game Plus. with all your stuff carry over. You can have an alternate ending. You can explore it again, and it's not a long game. Took me 14 hours only because I did every side mission I could. But you can beat it
Very,
in 12
very
really easily.
replayable though.
Yeah,
I've gone
yeah.
through it mostly again on New Game Plus. I would have finished it, but
Mm,
it just wasn't getting that many people watching, and I gotta think of the
yeah.
site. But
Yep.
also
Yep.
it is on Game Pass Ultimate. It's on PC
Mhm.
as well as console, and I'm really tempted to start it up and see how good it can look maxed out on PC because it's
On PC.
very pretty.
If you're playing on console, it has two modes, performance and quality.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure they're both 60 FPS because I switched to quality and it did not feel like it was any worse
Hmm.
frame rate. Maybe it hitches a little bit later in a little, but like overall, it looked a lot better. Played just as fine, is what I thought.
Yeah. And so the thing that always hit with Dead Space for me is after, like, I reviewed this a couple months after reviewing the Callisto Protocol. And the Callisto
Yeah.
Protocol was him, the guy, one of the main guys
Glenn
behind Dead
Schofield,
Space,
right?
trying to pull a lot of that same stuff in after they changed course on what the Callisto Protocol was going to be when Sony got behind
Yeah.
it more. And they just pulled so much of what Dead Space is and tried to recreate it there. And it didn't work the way this one has, and the way I've never had something match Dead Space 1, 2, or 3 for me, because I like them all. Because Dead Space 1, when we're talking about now, is a great horror action game. And then Dead Space 2 is a great action horror game because it's bigger budget and bigger scope on the
That makes
action,
sense.
but it's still horror. And then 3 is a great co-op action spooky at times game. Because so 3 still has a lot of messed up stuff in it. If you play as Isaac, you get one perspective of it all. If you play as, I believe his name's Carter, you get a completely different perspective because Isaac's got all the hallucinations
crazy
that Carter
stuff.
doesn't.
Yeah,
like you'll be staring at your co-op partner who's like going, "Oh my god, what's going on?" And you're just like, your character's like, "Hey, are you okay, Isaac?" You're like, you have no idea what, you don't see what they see.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
That's
so it's one of my favorite series, and I know people got very mad at 3 because they really did interfere with it a lot, and that's why I'm so happy with this one, because if they do them all and go further, and like they can change some of the story threads and stuff that people weren't huge fans of, and they can.
I mean, they already kind of did, right? With Dead Space, with 1, they had made some slight changes, which could make big changes later.
Yeah,
it's such a good game. It's the environmental storytelling, man. You get to a certain point in the game where it's like they've been saying a lot of people are like they're saying a lot of people on the ship went here. You get there, and it's like bodies all over the floor. People hung themselves, stabbed themselves to the sky. There's candles and blood. It's so
very
cool.
It's Event Horizon if it wasn't 90s cheese.
Yeah, it's Event Horizon if it was a movie. I mean, a game you can play too. It's
but and also like not that director who's just super.
Yes, fair enough.
Not good.
Fair enough.
It's a much
like
better
Event Horizon
version.
And Doom put together.
Yeah, it's more adult, oddly enough, because Event Horizon had the gore, but it was very 90s quick cut. You didn't get to see much gore. This is just straight up. You're chopping limbs off, you're chopping heads off, you're picking bodies up and flinging them.
If anyone's listening and isn't too comfortable with gore, I don't like super in-depth, like really gory stuff, right? Games like Dead Space and Doom do things a little different, where it's quick, to the point, not focused on. It's not.
It's just it is a part of what's happening. It is not torture porn or gore porn. It's not the point. It's just a thing that happens when you're chopping. Like the necromorphs are literally these husks wearing your old friggin' friends' faces and stuff that just I'll never understand how they're able to create so much organic matter just by infecting a body, but whatever, we just go with it.
Alien technology, man, is what it is. One last thing I wanted to,
but it doesn't look like I'm watching an autopsy like some of the Resident Evil games lately have.
Yes. It's like Ninja Gaiden almost in a way reminded me of, especially in terms of the limb slicing and whatnot, like Ninja Gaiden 2. It's gory, sure, but it's more like, hey, we're having fun gore, not like, I'm going to gross you out gore. In that sense. One last thing I wanted to say was, if you're playing the game and you're watching out for enemies, watch out for bathrooms. And not for enemies, for friggin' pipes, man. I got the biggest jump scare of playing any game ever. I'm just going to a bathroom. I know there's no enemies. I don't hear them crawling around. I move towards a little bit. This pipe opens above my head, and I jump off my sofa. Like it's just great game. Oh my god.
It's the right amount of stress. It's not too much.
Yes.
I don't feel like I'm out of control.
Fully
That's what
agree.
I don't really like about survival horror, where it just can become frustrating because you kind of feel useless. You're just trying to dodge everything all the time, the
Yes.
entire
Yes.
time. Like that's what I don't want Gears to turn into that. I don't
100%.
want to feel weak when I'm in a game.
Yep.
Like that's not what I'm
At the
playing
same
them for.
time, the first game makes it a point to not make you feel like a god either,
Mhm.
in the sense where like even though I'm re-exploring the ship, finding like locks or doors I haven't opened yet, and like even though I know I'm way more powerful, I'm like two-shotting the guys I meet at this point, it's still creepy as hell because I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what's coming. It's just really
And
well.
they still hurt you if they hit you. It's like it's not like you're
Yes,
ever
yes.
able to just take a
Also,
huge
like
beating.
the moment any kind of the monster or the necromorph enters within like a foot or two of you, you're freaking out. I don't care who you are. You're spamming, you're throwing your friggin' stasis, you're trying to get the hell away from them. Oh man.
That's
Motive,
why
right?
I've
Was the
always
studio
got
behind it?
I've always got
Yeah.
the concussive shotgun ready to
Yes.
go.
Yeah,
for
the
those.
force gun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's smart actually.
And
And
that
even the last fight,
alternate
yeah, sorry.
very good on the force gun. Just it shoots out a
Mm.
gravity ball that just sucks everything in it.
Yes. Yeah,
Very
something a lot
good.
like Gantz. Even the last fight I thought was pretty well done. A lot of times,
Mhm.
like these things can get kind of janky. Like Gears 2, for example, one of the best games I've played. The very last fight's a joke of a joke. Like it just brings the entire game down in a sense. Dead Space, at least with the remake, no, it kept it up throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it knows it feels extremely competent in its direction and its design. Like it had a bunch of
Yes.
talented people making stuff, but it also had very good leaders
Mhm.
for setting your expectations for what the game's going to be the whole time. I never felt let down
Yeah.
by a section or by a gameplay mechanic. Like it was just we're going to do the things that work and are fun, and we've got incredibly talented
Weirdly
people.
enough, it's a bunch of long hallways, right? Corridors. And I like the long hallways and corridors. When I went to open rooms, I'm like, ah, god damn it. Here we go. All right. Like you don't want the open rooms in this. You want the small, narrow things where you see them coming at you. No,
Mhm.
it's you emphasis on talent, man. You don't make a game that plays this fantastic by accident. Like I'm sure the original played great,
The
right?
original holds
But
up in a way a lot of games back then don't. Like it still
Mm.
feels okay, like pretty good
Yeah.
on a controller. But it was a
But this is ground
360
up, right?
controller.
They're not
So
using
this is
original
just
code. It's yeah.
yeah. This is a whole new engine, whole new everything. They had
Yep.
the skeleton of it, but building this, I think it was
Mm.
Unreal 4, and just extremely impressed. Like it'll be in my
Yeah.
top 5 probably this year. I mean, I gave it a 10. so
Oh,
it's
for
pretty good.
sure. For sure.
Yeah.
100%.
But yeah. Man,
Okay.
well, thank you for joining me. That was a ton of
Not a
fun.
problem.
I'm sure
Thanks for
I'll
having.
have you on
Yeah.
a bunch more. Unlike Nick, and I can say this to everyone, you play a lot of Xbox Game Pass games. So thank you so much
Well,
for joining
especially
me,
these
Aarsal.
days. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. And we'll talk to you soon.
See you
Ciao for
guys.
now. And we are back with our third and final segment. Again, I'm joined by John, Sik and Mechanical Clark. John, how are you still doing now that in the future I'm going to ask you because we're recording this out of order?
I am still doing okay. I love that we have this as a show, so it's nice to actually just talk about a specific game for a little while.
Yeah. And
I've got a
to
good
not
one.
get constantly interrupted while we do it by someone with a thick accent.
Yeah, wow. You know, we can't have everything, but I brought a good one along for the show today. A golden oldie, one might say, which is a lovely little title that I would wholeheartedly recommend. That if you haven't played it, that you immediately add it to your download queue, and it's called The Lonely Mountains Downhill. Bit of a weird name, and it's not the kind of game you'd expect me to like because I don't do anything sporty whatsoever, ever. But yeah, I know you've been playing it after I kind of mentioned
I
it.
have on this lovely little handheld most of the time. Since we were going to talk about it, I was like, yeah, you know what? I will take a look at this, and I have quite enjoyed it. It's occasionally
Horrifically
frustrating
addictive.
on purpose, which makes it
Yeah.
really addictive because you just want to get it right. And just a little mistake or just hit something the wrong angle. Because as people can see on the video now, you're going downhill all the time. If you're not watching, it is are they voxels? Or are they just
I don't know if it's just the art style. I don't think it's necessarily voxel based, but it's it's a blocky art style, but it's quite clean and pleasant.
It is
it's not
very
ugly.
clean, and it's nice because it runs incredibly well on that. Our old footage looks like shit. It runs.
I know that's an old capture card.
Yeah, I was like, am I at 1080p? And like, oh yes, I am. It's just really low bit rate. AV1 is magic, by the way. You can do it on your 4090. I wholeheartedly recommend AV1. It is, but yeah. So it's this basic blocky style. You're going downhill various courses. I'm still only in like the first area because it's pretty hard. It's definitely not an easy one. But what?
Well, I think it is that game. You mentioned it being frustrating, right? So the beauty of it is, there is a skill level to this. So you start off, you have one type of bike. It's got middle of the road suspension. It's quite, it's not great. It's not the fastest, and you've got the mainline routes from A to B. And as you go downhill on these mountain bike trails, you'll hit checkpoints, and each checkpoint you can then restart if you crash from that checkpoint, and so on. But as the game opens up, you'll start to collect bike parts, and then you'll start to collect different bikes. So you'll have a bike called, I think it's called the Boar, which has ridiculous suspension where you can just fling yourself off of ridiculous jumps and land it. Then you have the Pacemaker, which is really fast, and you suddenly realize that these levels with these beautiful winding paths through trees and over canyon ravines and rivers, they're actually huge mazes of different shortcuts and neat tricks that require certain bikes to
started
unlock.
Noticing that.
Yes, and that's the beauty of the game. That's where it suddenly gets addictive. And the perfect thing that the developers did, which is a team called Megagon, because this was published by Thunderful, they added that beautiful instant restart. You crash, bing, you're back at the checkpoint. There's no loading. You're just there, and it's this constant, like, one more go. And this was I want to say it was my game of the year 2021, maybe 2020, one of those.
Yeah.
But it ate a lot of time. And then there was the whole leaderboard fight between me and a best mate, as we just were like, this game it had its hooks in me in such a good way that I can't recommend it enough. I think it's an exceptionally well-made little game. I hope they do another one because I will play it a lot.
Yeah, it's a situation where, like, especially if you've got a little handheld like that, which would make a Series S handheld just incredible to have. It is one of those, pick it up, do a run, feel good about yourself, maybe do another one or two. But if you're just going to pick up and play something for half an hour, 45 minutes, it's been much like roguelikes, where you can just jump in, do a run, and you get that one more time feeling. But without having that randomness to your run, because you do know what you're going for. So in that sense, it ends up being a thing where you're building and you're learning and you're progressing in a very different way.
And the beauty of this is, so to give you a little bit of an idea of structure, as you're still kind of in that first area, there's 4 distinct mountain areas. And I think they've added some additional ones via DLC packs, like a volcano-ish type one. But there are 16 initial trails that you can ride down, and you've got the initial kind of green hills, nice area. Then you've got an autumn type forest. You've got sandy desert, and then you've got like a really foggy, kind of dark and difficult tracks. And it's just get to the bottom as fast as you can, but they give you different objectives each one, and you can choose to activate that objective. So if you're focusing on get down the hill in 2 minutes with 15 crashes, it's effectively between each checkpoint, you're starting to go, okay, what's the quickest I can do this? And stage by stage, you'll start to think, right, okay, there's a shortcut here, there's a shortcut here. And then there is this wonderful beauty of nailing them, or like if you can do it in one run, and there are challenges like that, like complete the course with 0 crashes from A to Z. Doesn't have to be necessarily the fastest time, but 0 crashes. And then some of the unlocks, they'll even give you nighttime versions. So you'll have a lamp on your bike, and that becomes even trickier because it's like where you can't see unless you're pointing your bike in the direction. So there is there's just this wonderful depth to it, and it peels back these layers of difficulty and complexity just ever so nicely throughout the pace of the game. It's a very, very good design. I really, really do recommend it. But it also is one of the most, like, when you know what you have to do and it's just you fucked up. It's your problem. You've not got the skills. You want to break your pad in half. You want to throw it at the wall. I have never in quite a few years screamed "fuck" at my TV while playing a game than I have with Lonely Mountains Downhill. It nails that perfect kind of balance of like frustration and challenge, and I love it for it. It's really good. It's weird. It's the Dark Souls of indie mountain bike games.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that is the thing with a lot of these, where it is figuring out your perfect run. Whether that is literally a race or a run, something you're doing on your own. With a roguelike, I've now perfected my build for what I want for this area or this boss. Like, that feeling can come in a lot of different ways. I know a lot of people get mad at the thought of the term roguelike, but it really is just this repeatable gameplay loop. And this game doesn't change up in the way a roguelike does. It isn't procedural in that way, but it gives you that same feeling in that speedrunner sense, and it's not always about speed. Sometimes it is just about being careful or doing things a certain way. Yeah. And I like when they change it up. I did Teardown recently, which was too focus similar in that it ends up being focused on finding the best path through stuff, except for you're playing first person and you're blowing shit up. And it's really fun, but it's super focused on timers all the time outside of specific levels. And those non-timer levels were my favorites by far, because the timer ones could be fun, but when it's only that, it gets a little too much for me. So I like hearing that there's a real variety to it, because it's definitely something that would keep me playing.
And you can I think it's kind to give you the stuff you need at the easier challenges. The bigger challenges, the more tricky ones, are more for like paint jobs and different looks to your bike rather than the necessities. So like I don't think anyone would struggle to get there. But there is no greater feeling, I think, than nailing that perfect run. Like when you do it and you've got the speed, because it's got this lovely little mechanic of like what a biker would do. It's just like pedal really fast and then coast. Right, so you just hold the A button for this boost. You've only got a set amount, but it's using it at just the right moments on a straight, and then you go into a curve and you pull off that perfect drift, and all the pebbles kick up, and then you really nail the jump. Oh, it's so good. It's interesting. It gives you a couple of methods to control it, and apparently I'm weird. I have it set so the camera is kind of fixed, and if I press like the direction, it will go the direction of where I'm pressing the thumbstick, as opposed to up is up, left is left, right is right. It's more the position of the bike. It's difficult to describe. There's a couple of variants to it. So apparently I play the weird one that no one else could get to grips with. Like my mate tried it on my machine, because when I was playing this, and I checked, it's back in 2020, because I reviewed this on PC and the Xbox One S. And X.
That's why it's so fuzzy.
Xbox Series console. That's probably why it looks as bleh as it does on the old video review. If you want, I'll send you some different footage to splice in here, and then it won't.
No, this is fine. He popped round, and on PC it was this flawless performance. On One S, it had some performance issues back then that they don't exist now on the Series consoles. But he tried to play it, and he was like, "Whoa, what is this control scheme?" I was like, "Well, it's just what I was using." So apparently, I set it to something weird. But now I can't go back, so it's just how I play. Yeah, I'm just on whatever.
Maybe I'm alone in that.
It's called like the Quest 3 here. Speaking of captures and OX, that does AV1, so I can stream to my computer with AV1, and uses like half the bandwidth and just looks perfect. So a little nerdy tangent.
Modern tech. Yeah. Modern technology.
You gave it a 9. You liked it quite a bit.
I did give it a 9. I loved it. Honestly, like it's probably an overlooked game. It's not like another big banner indie, but it's a really, really good game. And if you're listening to the Day One show right now and you're like, oh, what can I play over Christmas? And you want to break a few of your own pads, give Lonely Mountains Downhill a go. Like, add it to your download queue. I'd love to see like a leaderboard challenge on like the Xboxera forums and see if like who can set the best times. I think that would be fun. But
Yeah.
I also recognize that there's 1 million games out this year, and you know, going back and playing a golden oldie is probably for the more
Going
eclectic
back
and
playing it
us.
in between when you're a little burnt out on one of your
You want a
bigger
palate
games that are in the
cleanser.
backlog. You just want to have something to hop into for a run or two every now and then. That's what I've been doing, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah. So
Yeah,
that will
that's
do
Lonely
it
Mountains Downhill.
for Lonely Mountains Downhill. Last segment of the show, we'll be going into I'll do a very quick outro because literally the only friggin' game that's announced, there's just one of them for December. So, but again, thank you for joining me, John. Maybe we'll
Always
see
a
you next
pleasure.
month, but if not, we'll definitely see you every Saturday on the XboxEra podcast.
That's right.
Thank you, and goodbye. Normally, this final segment is me saying what's coming to Game Pass in the next drop. As far as I know, it is only SteamWorld Build. That's it. Nothing else. So next month will most likely be one big episode. I'll try and have Fairy Empire and Genghis and maybe John and Aarsal back. But thank you, everyone, for joining me again. Patrons get early access. You guys get to see this at least 1 or 2 days early. This week it might actually be 3. And I will see all of you guys next time for the XboxEra Day 1 Game Pass show.